you worked with a lot of famous people.
Oh, yes.
How did you find out that you were going to be doing an Elvis movie?
Well, I had been doing the Dick Van Dyke Show for the first 3 years of that series.
Which I loved.
Thank you. And yeah, it was a great show.
It was.
And in the third year, my agent called and said, we have a chance to get you a picture at Paramount with Hal Wallis. And I said, oh, my God. Hal Wallis is, he was a legendary producer who had done things like Casablanca and the Rose Tattoo and all those big English costume pieces. And I said, my God, Hal Wallis. So I was intrigued, and I was brought over to meet him, and he hired me. He put me on a contract, and I thought, oh, this is the beginning of something really great. Instead, I was assigned to do a very small comedy called Wives and Lovers at first. Oh, by the way, as I told Carl Reiner and Sheldon Leonard, I would have to leave the show because I'm going to do this film. And they said, oh, my goodness, when? And I had about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Well, we got to get a director. I turned around and I said, well, why don't you use him? I said, the show is so well on the rails now. The cast is very well rehearsed. I said, almost anybody, I think, can handle it now. Why don't you use this guy? And I pointed to Jerry Paris. And Jerry said, me? Do you want me to direct? I said, yeah, you can do it. So just watch me for a while. And and he had a pretty good career out of it.
Oh, did he?
Oh, well, he did Happy Days.
Oh, yeah.
And a whole lot of other stuff. Yeah, he was very successful. But he was playing the next-door neighbor. And he happened to be the guy nearest to me when I said, this guy can do it. and he became a pretty good director. Died too young, unfortunately. Anyway, so I went on and did that Wives and Lovers, and it came out quite well. Van Johnson and Janet Leigh in the starring roles, and not to be mentioned Shelley Winters, who the only actress I ever really had a problem with in all the years I've been working with famous people.
Really?
Oh, she was very difficult. And I have a little piece in there. I must say, I don't think I said anything negative. I loved my actors, but she was she was naughty. She would not learn her lines until she got on the set, and would take after take after take to get footage. And the other actors, like Janet Leigh, were worried, and Van Johnson. They say, my God, what happens? We're doing the 15th take for Shelley's purpose, and she's going to be good. You're going to print it. And we'll be looking bad. And I said, no, don't worry, I'll take care of that. But it was a chore. She was naughty. She just experimented while everybody was standing around. I was about 2 days ahead of schedule when she showed up for her first day of work. By the end of her first day, I was a day behind. Unbelievable. So that's the only one I've ever spoke negatively about.
Yeah.
But the next job that was offered was Elvis Presley on a show called Roustabout. And I didn't know much about Elvis, frankly.
You didn't know who he was?
Oh, I certainly knew who he was, but I was not a big music fan.
No.
In those days. I must confess, I was probably an old fogey because I didn't understand it at that time. I grew to appreciate his talent, obviously, later on. And he was a terrific guy to work with. Very gentle and very polite. It almost unnerved me because he would never call me John. It was always Mr. Rich. Very polite. And we were practically the same age, I guess, or very close. And it used to embarrass me a little bit. I said, Elvis, call me John. Oh, I can't do that, Mr. Rich. He was so respectful.
How do you think he was at acting?
Well, I had run some of his other films, and I thought they were not that good, frankly. And I said to Wallace, I don't think he's that much of an actor, but he's certainly a great singer. But I have an idea. I can do a few things. And so we had cast the magnificent Barbara Stanwyck. I don't know if have you ever seen a show, by the way, called Roustabout?
Oh, yes.
Oh, well, then, she played the owner of the carnival.
Yes. Yeah.
That Elvis comes to work for. And she was so magnificent. I would take Elvis aside after a couple of days rehearsal, and I'd say, I want to show you something. I said, this lady is so brilliant And we got Leif Erikson playing the heavy against her. Also very experienced people. I said, Elvis, you're going to have to get your acting up a notch because these people will bump the floor with you if you don't. And you can do this because it's like playing tennis with a better player. Because you're operating against strength, you're going to be stronger. And my goodness, he was terrific. I mean, his acting really came up a tremendous amount. But I was pushing him. I said, you really can do this, but let's think about these scenes before you go in and just mouth the words. I said, let's just talk.
So now you looked back at some of his films, didn't you? I always thought that when Elvis first started his career, that some of his earlier movies, he was better. Absolutely right.
That's absolutely correct. But he got into nasty, I was going to say, I don't mean nasty, lazy habits. I think he got into lazy habits with some of the shows. But I pushed him, and I must say he responded brilliantly. I really enjoyed working with him.
You never had any problems with Elvis on
Yeah, the only problem, there were two problems. One, he was always pretty much on time. But one day, Barbara Stanwyck, who was the ultimate professional actor, when you gave her a call for 9 o'clock, she would be standing in her marks, hair and makeup done, clothing correct, all the lines in her well in hand. And she's standing there at 9 o'clock one morning in her marks with the crew milling about, and Elvis is not there. And he showed up that day about 25, 30 minutes late. And I took him aside and I said, Elvis, I got to tell you, that lady out there was a star long before you were born. She's a magnificent professional. You must never, ever do that to her, or any actor for that matter. Never be late again, please. And he said, okay, Mr. Rich, I'm sorry. And he was never late again. He was terrific. But the other incident that was interesting, it's also in the book. By the way, the book is called Warm Up the Snake, a Hollywood memoir, which we can discuss later. But one day there was a scene calling for he was appearing as a singer in the script at a roadhouse. He has done his number, and in the number there's some college fraternity boys took exception to some of the lyrics that he was singing,
right?
Because it was making fun of college boys,
right?
And they pick a fight with him out in the parking lot. And when we staged the fight, Elvis came to me and said, Mr. Rich, can I do my own stunt? I laughed. I said, no, of course you can't. He said, why? I said, what do you mean, why? I said, why do you think we have stunt people? If something happens to you, God forbid, the picture shuts down. No, it's a big fight. And he said, but I'm a black belt in karate. I know all about this. I said, I have no doubt that you're terrific in karate, but this is a staged fight. He said, well, I can handle myself. I said, look, I don't worry about you so much, but handling yourself. But what happens if there's a misstep and the guy punches you in the face? I said, we're dead. Oh, he pleaded and pleaded and pleaded. And finally he said, I really want to do this, Mr. Rich. He said, so I had a lot of witnesses around. He said, I'll take full responsibility. I said, against my better judgment, because he really was anxious to do this. I said, well, okay. So they did the fight, and of course, he got clipped in the head. Opened up a big gash over his forehead. We shut down and put him in the hospital.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so of course, thank goodness we had Hal Wallis' associate producer, Paul Nathan, was on the set when he heard Elvis in this conversation taking responsibility. Thank goodness, because otherwise I'd be out of my rear end. And Wallace had a little moment to calm down because before I talked to him, when Paul Nathan reported. So Elvis just took one day and they bandaged him up and he came in slightly chastened. We met with Wallace and it was like, my God, we're going to have to shut down. And I said, Mr. Wallace, I have an idea. In the film, the Elvis character has ridden the motorcycle and been forced off the road by Leif Erikson in a Jeep. And we have shot that, where Elvis comes, and it was a very good stunt. And obviously, we did a stunt rider for this one. The stunt motorcycle comes through the fence and lands in a field. character of Elvis has already been in an accident. Why don't we just put a bandage on him and play that scene as if it was hurt and like it was planned, which we did. And we put a large Band-Aid on his forehead. Look at the picture, but we try to minimize it by with makeup. And we continued to shoot. And he wore that patch for quite a while in the film, and it was very fortunate that it worked out that way so we could explain it in that manner.
See, I never realized he was actually hurt.
He was actually hurt, yeah.
Wow.
But he was a trooper. He came through, and he was chastened for having insisted on the thing. And I said, no more, please, no more stunts. Oh, I tell you a couple of the things to make it interesting for myself because, as I say, I was not much of a music fan. But I thought, how are we going to... There's a scene where he's riding his motorcycle before he has the crash, and he's singing a song, and the schedule called for Elvis to be sitting on a motorbike in a studio with rear projection. And there's nothing stagier to me than that. You know about that.
Right.
Rear screen projection and all of that. And it just looks phony. So I said to the sound department, I said, first I said to Elvis, I said, you really ride a motorcycle very well, don't you? He said, yeah. I said, how would you like to do this scene on the road, singing? He said, really? I said, yeah, well, let me check something first. So I called the sound department. I said, we have a problem. You know how we do it. You record the song first, then you play it back to the actor. I said, any problem if I did this on the road? They said, well, no, you can't do that because it's a record and it's going to skip. The needle will skip. I said, well, why don't we have tape? That doesn't skip.
Right.
Well, no, we can't do that. I said, yeah, let's do a test. And you could do that. So, and Elvis was delighted. So I got two cameras, one a long shot and one a close-up on an insert car with all the lights and everything. And I said, I'd just like you to be perfect in your lip sync, of course, because I don't want to do this too often. It's running up and down a road. And we shot it that way. If you look at the film, that was real.
Yeah.
He was perfect in his lip sync, and the shot looked terrific. And Hal Wallis was superbly pleased because I saved 3 days of shooting. That's a lot of money on a big picture. So that worked well.
Oh, that would have been awful if they had done that in the stage.
Oh my God! And it really was terrific.
Yeah.
So then I had another inspiration because there was a scene where he's now working at the carnival, and there's Joan Freeman is the love interest, the girl, and it's before the carnival opens, and they're walking by the Ferris wheel where the operator is testing it, and Elvis says to the operator, "Do you mind if we ride while you test the Ferris wheel?" He said, "No, well, it's okay." So they get into the bucket seats, and again, it was planned for 3 days of process in the studio, and they'd be sitting in the mock-up of a chair, and the scenery would move behind them. And I thought, oh, geez, I better ride this thing and see what it looks like. So I went out to the location, and I rode looking backwards, which is where the plate would be made.
Right.
And as soon as I was down, when I was down low, it was very colorful because you had a merry-go-round behind, and pennants and balloons. But as you rose, as the seat rose, you got into farmland, which is where we were shooting the thing. And then in the far distance is Ventura Boulevard and Sky. It was about 2 miles away. That's another thing about making it. We made the carnival. Actually built one right there.
Oh, did you?
Oh yeah, because you can't fake that because that was a big carnival. In fact, I had asked. I'll come back to that scene in a moment. But I had asked the people who set up carnivals in towns, how do you determine where to put the thing? They said, well, you just walk out into a field, wherever it is, and you put down a stake, and you build everything around that. What they call the Ferris wheel is the big bally to create attention, and then it's all very mathematically set up. Where you have particular rides set this way and that way, and then there's another thing. There's a midway where the stores are. I mean the stores, but the games. Balloon toss, all of that stuff. And it's all very precise. So we went out to, it was called the Alberton Ranch. It was a cattle ranch. Today it's a big city, by the way. But I went out to the Alberton Ranch and I looked at it. And the problem was Ventura Boulevard is where we started. And I said, we can't be this close to Ventura, because not just because of the noise, but because of the flock of people. They'll be coming to go to a carnival. We have to have control. So I said, let me walk in or ride in about 2.5, 3 miles, so that Ventura was just a speck in the background. And I said to the carnival operator, drive the stake here. Great feeling of power.
Mm-hmm.
He put down a stake, and that became the center of the carnival. And then we had to fence off the entire field so that people could not come casually in.
Right.
And we built a road, our own road, to get to the carnival. Then we made this carnival, and I had about 1,000 extras. People, you would hire regular extras, and then you hired the cheaper people just to come and enjoy the day with their children.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd just tell them in the background, just ride the rides, eat the popcorn and all that, and it was very colorful. And the place was fenced so that Elvis's fans couldn't get near him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very convincing carnival, because it was the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so now we're back to this test ride on the Ferris wheel. And I was dismayed to see that it was boring when you got up high. And I said to Lucian Ballard, our cinematographer, how high can our crane go? And he showed me, and I said, he said, what are you thinking of? I said, I'd like to do this live, similar to the motorcycle. I want to record Elvis singing to the girl and stay with them on the Ferris wheel so that their faces fill the screen. It's boring. And then as it comes down, you see the other seats come into focus, and it goes away from you. And I found another thing. I was able to get the music of the song he was singing to be synced up with the speed of the Ferris wheel. That was interesting. So I thought, this would be great, but is it possible? And Lucian said, well, it's so tough on the crew, because when the camera is high, it has to reach the top and not bump, and then it's got to be pulled ahead of the Ferris wheel coming down. So you've got to get guys on they have a big rope, and then they pull it down, and then 5 or 6 guys catch the camera platform at the bottom so that it comes to just an easy touch, and then it rises again. Now we have an up and down motion on the camera, and a rotating movement on the Ferris wheel. Am I being too technical with this?
No.
No, okay. And so Lucian said the only problem is we can only do it once, because it's too tough on the knees of the crew, because it's about 6 revolutions to finish the song.
Right.
And I said to Elvis, I've asked you before to be perfect on lip sync, and you did it. Here's one and he was intrigued by what I was attempting to do. I said, you've got to be perfect, because I can't do it more than 1, maybe 2, but that's it. Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Rich. And he's happy to do it. And he was very cooperative. And so he practiced. We were very satisfied he was good on that. We did the number. It was brilliant. I mean, I must say, everybody was astounded it came out so well. And when Hal Wallis saw the dailies, he said, how did you do this? I mean, that's a great shot. And again, saved 3 or 4 days of shooting, and it looked wonderful. And I said, well, it just, it's a talented crew, and Elvis was very cooperative. It was great. Okay, so in the film, when we cut the film together, I said to the editor, well, there's one scene you don't have to touch because it's one take. And he would just paste the 2 ends together. And that's the way I delivered it to Wallace. Then he made his cut and invited me in to see what he had done to the film. There were very, very few changes. But suddenly, to my astonishment and pain, in the middle of the Ferris wheel shot, which he had loved, he cuts to the guy running the machinery. I said, why'd you do that? He said, well, you got to see who's running the ride. I said, no, you don't. Elvis and the girl came up, and he's doing a test run. They get in the thing. They sing.
Yeah.
I said, the thing is moving. You know who's doing it. No, I like it this way. I said, but all you've done is proven that I didn't do it in one take. By cutting away to the operator,
right,
you've ruined the effect. No, this is the way I like it. God, it just killed me. But that's the way the film went out. If you look at it, there was a cut to the operator. I never have understood why he wanted to do that, because we didn't change angles, as I recall. It was just the one shot. I didn't have anything to cut to. Why? It wrecked it for me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you too that there was a very young Raquel Welch on that movie, wasn't there?
Oh, that was in the scene where the fight went on.
Yeah.
There was a girl, one of the students in the Roadhouse. We had a call for beautiful girls, and just arbitrarily we picked a brunette, a blonde, and a redhead, and I gave the line to the blonde. And on the day when we were shooting, she froze up. And we did 4 or 5 takes, and I said, we really can't continue like this. Forgive me, but I have to take this line. And I said to the redhead, you take that line. And she did it, and it was perfect, one take. And I took her aside and said, I want to thank you for, getting me out of this sequence in one piece. And she said, well, I'm going to be my first film, but I'm going to be a big star someday. And I said, yeah, sure. Great. Good luck. It was Raquel Welch.
Raquel Welch.
And she did turn out. Let me finish the story with Wallis.
Okay.
So, having done the terrible deed to my cut, I actually did this because Wallis thought I was crazy. But I had seen my attorney and had written a codicil to my will. And I came in to see Hal Wallis in his office, and I said, I want to tell you something. I have just named you in my will. And he got, he's a very hard guy, but he got very soft. He said, really? I said, yeah, you're in my will. No kidding. I said, would you like to see, or like to hear what I've written? He said, yeah. And I took out this legal paper, which was true. I had done this legally. And I read the following. If I should die before Hal Wallis, which is probable because I'm working for the son of a bitch. And he looked up startled. I said, I direct that my body be cremated and the ashes blown into Wallace's eyes.
And what did he say? Just laugh?
He said, you didn't do that. I said, here, it's right here. And it was in my will until fortunately he predeceased me.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, sir. Did you ever, Elvis was always with a bunch of men. Did you ever...
They were a pain in the butt.
Were they?
A little bit, yeah. As long as they were having fun, they were terrific. But one day Elvis walked by my cutting room, and he said, oh, can I watch? I said, are you kidding? Of course you can. And he got very interested in the process of editing. I said, you can come any time. I'd be delighted to show you what we're doing. And he was fascinated for about 5 minutes when the entourage came by, and they said, come on, Elvis, this is boring. Let's get out of here. And they took him away, and I always regretted that because he had a real interest in what I was doing and should have followed through, but the entourage took him away. So that's one of those things. No, they were okay. As long as everybody was making jokes and carrying on, it was all right. But I found that they took his attention a little bit too much.
Yeah, but did it ever get in the way of Elvis's work or your work? Or?
No, not really. But I don't think they particularly cared for me because I was sticking to the task. Let's get this film done and done very well. But so I don't think I was popular with them, but Elvis and I got along, so that was good.
Yeah. Well, it certainly was one of my favorite films.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
I'm so glad to hear it.
Now, didn't you do another film with Elvis, too?
I did a thing at the end of Elvis's contract with Hal Wallis. They did a thing which I can only tell you in distress was a throwaway. Because it was called Easy Come, Easy Go. And because the contract was at an end, Wallis wanted to spend no money on it. And it was done almost without any music, which drove me crazy because by that time, I said the big thing was selling it is music. Why are we cutting all the songs? And he played a Navy diver. Are you familiar with the film?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, then you know.
It's not one of my favorites.
No, me too. Because, again, the only thing that I liked in that show, that again, my penchant for doing live shots if you look at the opening when the sailors are on a Liberty boat coming to shore, and I said, let's shoot this live. So it was boat to boat. Look at the film sometime.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that opening, that big opening song with a group was shot from one boat to another. People thought I was nuts, but it looked very good.
It looked good, yeah. Now, do you think that movie could have been saved if they put more money into it?
Oh, of course. Yeah, why not? I mean, it was corny.
Yeah.
But so what? I mean, his plot, the plots in Elvis's films were not all that great,
right,
necessarily, but he made them come alive.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it could have been good. I mean, he looked good. He was playing a Navy diver.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Do you think if Elvis had gotten better films, he could have been a better actor?
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
No question, because I think he came up very high for Roustabout, because I would tease him into being better.
Mm-hmm.
By the time we got to Easy Come, Easy Go, it was like everybody was, in fact, Elvis was weary, and I guess he was annoyed at Wallace by that time.
He just wanted it to be over.
He wanted to be over, it's exactly right.
He got so tired. I think he got so tired, sir, of the cookie-cutter movies that he was doing.
Exactly.
It was the same thing every time.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I think
it was even worse because the cookie in this case was taken away. I mean,
mm-hmm.
You could have a cookie cutter, but at least have some music,
right,
that's memorable.
Right.
And, no, he wouldn't.
So he wasn't the same in that movie to you? Could you see that he wasn't the same?
Well, he was annoyed at Wallace. He just wanted to get it over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I could see it.
Yeah.
No, we had some fun. We shot on Catalina Island,
mm-hmm.
and we had some fun dining out and so forth.
Oh, did you?
It was a hard show to do, believe it or not, because it's ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And he was as cooperative as before, but it was really silly stuff and not enough music and not the best leading lady, I must say.
Uh-huh.
But hey, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
a job.
When was the last time that you saw Elvis? I mean, did you ever talk to him after the movies?
I think I may have run into him once or twice, but I don't really recall.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But I liked him. I mean, I felt sorry for him because I thought he was tortured in many ways
mm-hmm.
by celebrity, by having to live up to some kind of code that Colonel Parker dictated.
How was Colonel Parker? Did you have any run-ins with him?
No, he was fine. I mean, he gave me a lot of interesting stuff for the carnival.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did he?
He was an old collie man.
Right.
One thing he taught me was, I love this piece. You know the balloon toss where you throw a dart?
Yeah.
He said, never throw it straight. That's the thing. People make a mistake. They throw it at the balloon.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what do you mean? He said, but you have to throw it up in the air, make it an arc, so that the point of the dart comes down, rather than it won't break if you go straight.
No, he's right. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he helped you with other things with the carny too.
He would give me some language that I could use.
Oh, did he?
Carny talk,
Uh-huh.
And yeah, he was okay.
Yeah.
He didn't interfere much, I must say.
Now, there's a question I always have to ask people. How did you hear, sir, that Elvis had passed away?
I don't remember, but it was such a shock. I don't know where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Probably working someplace, and the word came down on the set, and I said, my God, how's that possible?
Mm-hmm.
He was 42?
42 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't recall exactly where I was, but
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Mr. Rich, what are you doing now?
Well, nothing. I'm about to go into surgery is what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
I had a knee replaced some years ago, and it's come a little unstuck. So it's been 12 years, so it's been migrating a little. They're going to repair it.
Well, I hope you do well with your surgery. I'm sure you'll be just fine.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I want to thank you for doing this for me and Elvis Express Radio.
My pleasure.
Okay, hold on.
How would you be using this, by the way?